Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today we are talking about the latest rumors coming out of the NFL Scouting Combine. The players arrived yesterday. There is current GM media availabilities happening today. The Packers GM talked, the Carolina Panthers head coach talked. So we're getting some insight as to what teams want to do in the draft, free agency, maybe even some impending free agents, some quarterback rumors are out there, but we are hyper focused on the San Francisco 49ers. And unsurprisingly, the second day of the NFL Combine has given us a ton of information to talk about today, including multiple possible trades out there, including Brandon Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel, a really intriguing defensive tackle has hit the open market in regards to Washington Commanders DT Jonathan Allen, and we have some Brock Purdy updates to get to. On top of all of that, we have arguably one of the best and maybe one of the most linked prospects to the San Francisco 49ers in this year's draft class, having one of the biggest red flags possible. It was disheartening. We'll get into that in today's show as well. But don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And let's dive into today's news coming out of the 2025 NFL Draft Combine. I was shocked when I heard the first bit of news that came out, I guess, roughly about like 6 in the morning on the Pacific West Coast. Via Diana Rossini of the Scoop City podcast by way of The Athletic, she reports that some teams have been, quote unquote, poking around to see if the 49ers wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk is available via trade. When I heard that, I said, seriously? Teams want to inquire about Brandon Aiyuk of all people. Now, Aiyuk is a great receiver when he's healthy, but a big problem is he's not healthy, and his contract just hit the books this year. Like, this is the beginning of his new contract extension, which obviously is worked a certain way to help limit the cap hits and whatnot. But again, it has paid him a lot last year, and he's hurt. Which teams want to trade for him? But according to Rossini, there are a handful of teams, a couple, that are saying, hey, San Francisco, are you open to moving Brandon Aiyuk this offseason? Let's talk about, would the San Francisco 49ers actually trade Brandon Aiyuk? The quick answer is no. Unless they're given some godfather, like, here's 3 first-round draft pick offer, which isn't coming. The Niners are not going to trade Brandon Aiyuk. The team spent literally the entirety of last offseason trying to get a deal done with him. That came with social media posts, that came with trade requests, that came with a near trade that forced Kyle Shanahan to run up from his office to John Lynch's office to say, hey, call the trade off. Aiyuk wants to sign. So, no, a deal's not going to get done moving Brandon Aiyuk. I know there are some reports out there via Tim Kawakami of people inside San Francisco's front office being, I guess, resentful towards Aiyuk and how things went last year during negotiations. But I tell you this, there is practically a 0% chance that the Niners trade Brandon Aiyuk this offseason. In fact, take away the front office feelings, last year's negotiations, just financially. It would cost the San Francisco 49ers $41.2 million in dead cap to trade him this year. That's 1 year of almost $50 million of a player you're not going to have on your roster. Just financially speaking, business-wise, what an idiotic decision that would be by Jed York and company out there at Niners HQ. So that's one reason as to why things aren't going to happen. 2, if you go the next 3 years, $96 million in dead cap over the next 3 seasons. It doesn't make sense to me financially whatsoever. But arguably the biggest factor in this is that you are about to pay Brock Purdy top of the line money. whether it's $50 million, $55 million. We have an update on him later in the show, so stay tuned for that. You are going to royally piss off your franchise quarterback when it comes to losing Deebo Samuel. And if you trade Brandon Aiyuk, losing at the time his two top receivers. So no, like if I'm Brock Purdy and I hear by any chance my team is wanting to pay me top of the line money, but also trade away my number one receiver, who, when he's healthy, me and him have top notch chemistry. He was an all pro essentially when we were out there with him. Me and him helped save the season against the Detroit Lions just 2 playoff rounds ago in 2023. I would say if you are going to trade Brandon Aiyuk, you either A, better give me $65 million per year to make up for the loss. 2, better have something cooking behind the scenes, which wouldn't feel like the case knowing who's out there in the trade market. This receiver class is not last year's class, albeit it's okay. Like if you're Brock Purdy, I'm losing Deebo Samuel, and even the idea of trading away Brandon Aiyuk is just asinine, crazy, not going to happen. But for the sake of trying to figure out which teams could be poking around the availability of Brandon Aiyuk, I did some light digging into each team's cap space this year, because whoever acquires Brandon Aiyuk, 1, has to have a pretty good haul of picks or players to get a deal done, but 2, they have to be able to afford Brandon Aiyuk. So let's see. And I have 4 teams currently I think maybe are amongst the group to be poking around, to use Rossini's words, Brandon Aiyuk's availability. The first one, the Pittsburgh Steelers, that feels like the favorite one. They wanted Aiyuk last year, almost got Aiyuk last year. Things didn't work out for them. That's who Lynch was always on the phone with when Kyle ran up there and said, hey, hang up the phone, trades off. So I could see them calling just to say, hey, how's it going out there? You want to trade him this offseason? They have $56 million in cap space to spend, which would open the door for a potential trade that at least wouldn't happen, but could make sense financially and with draft pick compensation wise. The second team I have is the Los Angeles Chargers. Went to the playoffs last year. They want to surround Herbert with big time playmakers. Lab McConkey is awesome. Greg Roman's out there with Jim Harbaugh. They want to find that number one receiver to complement Lad McConkey. I could see the Chargers and their $62 million in cap space saying, hey, if we let Khalil Mack go and let Joey Bosa go, we can try to improve the offense in the meantime, or to help supplement the defensive losses with offensive improvements. I can see the Chargers trying to see if the Niners would want to trade Brandon Aiyuk to them this offseason. My number 2 team, I think, is up there with the Commanders, or excuse me, I can give it away there, up with the Steelers in regards to 2 of the likely teams to have asked the question again this offseason, that being the Washington Commanders. Obviously, they had the tremendous year last year. Jaden Daniels looks incredible. They want to try to avoid that sophomore year slump. They think they are trending upwards after an NFC Championship game appearance last year against the Philadelphia Eagles. I can see them saying, hey, Aiyuk wanted to play here last year. He has the injury. San Francisco is trying to kind of pivot the roster, the locker room, the clubhouse back to what it was a couple of years ago. They want to get rid of some high-paid contracts, hence why Deebo Samuel is probably going to get cut anyways. I can see them questioning if San Francisco would trade Aiyuk. They have $75 million in cap space. They're really young. If one team makes the most sense, it would be them fit-wise, financially, and draft pick compensation-wise, over teams like the Chargers and the Steelers. Then finally, the number 1 team that I think most definitely asked the 49ers, would you trade Brandon Aiyuk, is the New England Patriots. The Patriots have Drake May, who was oddly enough a Pro Bowler last year, which stat-wise didn't deserve it, although the ceiling is very, very high for a quarterback of Drake May's nature. They got new head coach Mike Vrabel's in there. They want to give May offensive weapons around him. They want to build up the offense around Drake May, and rightfully so. They were apparently a team last year that was willing to give Aiyuk $32 to $33 million per season. So knowing he's a little cheaper than that, I can see them saying, hey, look, we have plenty of money to spend. We have Kendrick Bourne, who is fine as the number 2, number 3 guy. We now have our quarterback. Let's get Brandon Aiyuk in here. We'll have plenty of money left over still. It's the Patriots make the most sense in regards to like the number 1 team to ask for Brandon Aiyuk again. They wanted them last year. It's the same GM, just new head coach. They're trying to refix that culture out there with Mike Vrabel as their new head coach. I would almost guarantee the Patriots asked San Francisco, what would it cost to give us Brandon Aiyuk? Let's see. To give the Niners credit here and to kind of put to kind of dampen the trade conversation for a hot second here, there is no indication that San Francisco is even thinking about trading Brandon Aiyuk, nor do I think they are. It'd be stupid. It'd be foolish. You'd piss off Brock Purdy. You'd lose your number 1 receiver, who I get is injured currently right now, but the hope is he's back by October, November time and ready for maybe a deep playoff run again if everything goes to plan. But there's no indications that they are going to or even want to trade Brandon Aiyuk. The way things went last year, even if it made people in the front office upset, it doesn't really matter. Like, after you get that done, even if you are angry to a certain degree, you don't move away from that player after 1 year. You don't do that. It's irresponsible for your locker room, your clubhouse, the players on your team. Also irresponsible from a front office standpoint. So Ayuk's going nowhere, despite some teams pawing around. Keep in mind, the NFL Combine usually is a place where rumors fly around like crazy, where you hear the most insane things. Sometimes those insane things come true, and we all say, whoa, what happened? How did that happen? How did that transpire? What led to said moves happening? But Brandon Aiyuk and his future in San Francisco, at least for this year, and probably next year and the year after that, is seemingly locked in stone. He'll be here for the foreseeable future. The only time and place this move would make sense is like the final year of his contract, kind of like Deebo Samuel right now. So I know teams are looking out there, and you're going to hear rumors of, well, this team fits and this team fits. The San Francisco 49ers are not going to trade Brandon Aiyuk this offseason. I want to get to the Brock Purdy update, and I want to combine it with a major coaching change we found out about maybe an hour ago. And I'll start with that because apparently the San Francisco 49ers announced their new coaching staff today, at least the changes they've made. And amongst those are, Gus Bradley's on the, one of the assistants. Ronald Blair got promoted to a different position. Obviously, Salah's the new DC. Brant Boyer's the new ST. But a major coaching departure was that of Brian Griese is no longer the San Francisco 49ers quarterback coach. We didn't get a reason as to why. It's kind of a blindsiding move. Shocking, if you will. In an offseason where you are going to pay Brock Purdy, and don't forget, Brian Griese is one of the coaches, one of the assistants that was responsible for San Francisco drafting Brock Purdy in the first place. He was adamant, we need to get Brock Purdy. Now he's gone. Now Brian Griese is gone and Mick Lombardi takes over. Again, it was shocking. It was weird. Didn't really expect there to be a quarterback coaching change, knowing Griese has been just excellent as the QB coach. Working with Brock Purdy, been a really important piece into, at the time, Jimmy Garoppolo playing better in 2022. And of course, Purdy's ascension, a lot of that is due to Brian Griese as a quarterback coach, which Benali P asks here, how long before someone posts about how Brian Griese leaving is a sign that the Niners are moving off of Brock Purdy? Yeah, it's one, that's stupid. Yes, I'm sure a certain group of people, one of them very well, will probably put together an article today, if not right now, saying, what Brian Griese's departure means for Brock Purdy, and meaning Brock Purdy's not going to sign an extension, although that's not true whatsoever. Brock is locked in, at least he will be soon enough. But That said, it was odd. It was weird. Like, we have no idea. Lori Matthews asks here in the YouTube chat, did Greasy get offered a position somewhere else, I wonder? The only position that I know Greasy was like, requested an interview for was the Jets head coaching job, and he turned that down. So this could very well be a personal thing. Maybe he wants to not coach for a year or two. I have no idea. Maybe it's just one of these big transitional changes San Francisco is making, but um, I'm sure in the near future we'll get an answer for that as to why Brian Greasy's not coming back. But again, odd decision by San Francisco if it was theirs. I think we have to leave the door open that um, maybe this wasn't the Niners' choice. Maybe Brian Greasy left on his own accord. I can see that happening. I can see, I can see maybe Brian wanting to do something differently. Although, again, the timing of this is so weird. Um, and maybe it means nothing. Maybe timing is nothing of this. Maybe Purdy's extension and Greasy leaving have nothing to do with each other. Maybe Brock is somehow throwing his weight around. I want Nick Lombardi to be my quarterback coach, albeit that doesn't sound like Brock Purdy whatsoever. So I don't know. Like, I don't know what to make of it. I believe Nick Lombardi was the Raiders quarterback coach in 2023. I think that's the case. So when Jimmy Garoppolo was there, I think he was their quarterback coach, or at least one of their assistant quarterback coaches. So um, you can say there's connections in some way, but I don't think Brian Greasy leaving has anything to do with Brock Purdy. Um, Niner Media says, "What's going on? What's going on?" Back to you in the YouTube chat. Fluffy Ninja asks here before I get back to the Brock Purdy update. Hey Sterling, what's going on? Crazy question. With the potential for Trey Lance to be released, do you think a return to San Francisco could work? No. I don't think that Trey Lance will ever play for the San Francisco 49ers again. I think it's more likely this team signs Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Jarrett Stidham, Joe Flacco than Trey Lance. Like, I get it. You know, the idea of it is kind of cool. Come back, maybe be something one day uh, with San Francisco, but I think that the Trey Lance train is over. It has been for a couple of years now, obviously. Uh, and look, I want to make it clear. I really like Trey. Really good guy. When I was there in the building during the press, Trey was always kind to every single person, answered every single question, like did everything the right way. Just wasn't good enough, and that's okay. That happens all the time. Um, I also want Trey, and Trey needs to go to a place where he can get valuable playing time. I think a place like the Saints with Kellen Moore, with a really bad Derek Carr, would be a great place for Trey Lance, especially if they can draft some receivers this year. I know a lot of their guys are banged up. Shaheed had the knee injury. I'm forgetting their top receiver's name for a second, but like the Saints need some quarterbacks that have high upside, and Trey certainly still has that, albeit just needs to play. He shouldn't have come out of college when he did. He needs reps, and so for Trey, I think the Giants make sense. I think a team like the Saints make a ton of sense. There's no pressure there. They know they're in for the long haul in regards to that rebuild. Go out there, get some reps. The odds Derek Carr plays 17 games is so slim. I think it's a great place for him. And also, Trey would look just phenomenal aesthetically in a Saints jersey. So I don't think he'll be back in San Francisco ever. But I wish him the best. I hope Trey figures it out somewhere down the road. Kawachipto says here, and yes, Chris Olave. Thank you. Chris Olave had the concussions. It was terrifying last year for them. But they can find some players out there in New Orleans. I really think Trey can at least be better than Derek Carr and Spencer Rattler, because yikes, those guys were terrible. Kawachipto says here, people freak out about the small things. Yeah, they do. Unfortunately, in a very, I don't know how I can say this, but today's culture is very much, if you're not freaking out, you're not reacting at all. So we're not freaking out here. We're just reacting. um, let's just see this. Lori Matthews says, considering how Jimmy Garoppolo looked in Vegas, the Mick Lombardi promotion doesn't sound promising. Uh, yeah, I mean, Jimmy had so many problems in Vegas, his own and others, mainly the head coach and the play calling, and then Jimmy also being terrible. um, where Jimmy last year looked better than how he did against the Raiders and played like 2 games for the Rams. But yeah, I don't know why Greasy was let go or why he left. Again, it doesn't concern me, but it certainly is. It at least raises questions as to what happened, like what's going on, and maybe there is some negative feelings from Kyle Shanahan as to how Brock played last year late in the season, where he was seemingly healthy, but wasn't really playing up to speed, wasn't playing up to Brock Purdy levels of play that we had seen in early last year and previous seasons. Maybe there was a kind of just a mental shift where things weren't working. Maybe there was some behind the scenes problems. We'll never know until we eventually do know, which may never happen. But we did today get a Brock Purdy update, a small one, mind you, from Diana Rossini of the Athletic and the Scoop City podcast. She reiterated that conversations between Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers have already been had, that they're already negotiating a contract, but she assumes that the quote-unquote more serious talks will occur this week during the Combine when John Lynch and I'm sure Parag Marate and Jed York and other guys you don't see in front of the media will be there attending. Not Kyle Shanahan, mind you, but Kyle seems to be so far removed from negotiations that does add up. And I'm sure Brock's agent will be there at the Combine negotiating with San Francisco. At least Diana Rossini believes it'll happen. But she gave us a more concrete number as to what to expect for Brock Purdy's contract extension. She was talking to her co-host Chase Daniel, and they were discussing what number makes the most sense. We've heard so many of them. We've heard $60 million per year, resetting the market. We've heard 50. Some people say give him 30 per year. The lower end of that doesn't make sense as to what the market dictates. Although Rossini today did say that to expect, or at least she's expecting Brock to make just above Trevor Lawrence's 55 per year, $55 million per year average. So she did narrow down that number and say around $57 million per year. So according to Diana Rossini, Brock Purdy is going to make $57 million per year. That's the number she projects to be the case when he signs his contract, hopefully in the near future. She also did say that she has no indications that Brock Purdy or the Niners are going to let this thing linger. She didn't say it get done this week, but she said she would not be shocked to see this thing done either shortly prior to free agency on March 12th or shortly after it begins in the month of March. So pretty good insight there, pretty good news for the San Francisco 49ers and Brock Purdy. She even said herself that Brock doesn't seem like the guy to kind of hold it over San Francisco's head, that 57 makes the most sense, that both parties, San Francisco and Purdy, will be really happy about $57 million per year. So it really feels like that's the number. I know I was on with Larry Krueger, and he did this whole mathematical equation to figure out what Brock would make. And he kind of in a roundabout way got to that number as well, as Kawachito points out here in the YouTube chat, that $57 million that would be similar to Jared Goff's deal if you adjust for inflation. So it all adds up. It makes sense for that. I think Matt Barrow said that too on the 49ers Plus Minus podcast with Tim Kawakami. So that makes sense. It does feel like that's the number they'll get to. It's just below Dak Prescott's and makes Brock, according to the AAV, the second highest paid quarterback per year in the NFL, which I think is a very comfortable number to sit at for Brock Purdy. And again, fingers crossed, and all indications point to this thing getting done at a much quicker rate than Brandon Aiyuk and Trent Williams, and maybe even could get done before free agency if all things go as planned, which fingers crossed it does in the next few weeks or so. Let's see. Benali P says here, didn't the Niners up Greasy's salary to convince him to stay last season? He didn't want to do coaching thing too long. Maybe he's headed back to the booth. I wouldn't be shocked. I don't know which booths are available. That said, that would also lend credence to Greasy turning down an interview for the Jets head coaching job. Like, I know the Jets are a mess, and I get that may turn potential coaching candidates away, and that happens a lot. But that also, like, what you're saying makes sense, because if you don't want to, if you don't want to coach in general or coach too long in general, right? He seemed like he was here for 1 or 2, 3 years. Okay, cool, fingers, thumbs up, awesome. But he's not in it for the long haul. He's not going to accept head coaching offers or even interviews. Like, there's no point in doing that. So that makes sense. And like I said, this could very well not be San Francisco's decision. It could very well be he was done. He did it for a couple years and said, you know what? Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And that happens a lot. So some may spin this as, oh, the sky's falling and Brock Purdy and the Niners. And then, like, okay, no. Sometimes things are a business decision to fire people. Sometimes people want to step away and move on with their lives and do other things, which I would not be shocked to hear is what Brian Greasy is doing. We have a question here from Niner Media saying, do you think Kittle and Juwan Jennings get extended quickly? I think Kittle's may linger a little bit. I would not be shocked if that's done closer to OTAs and training camp. I think that would make the most sense. They're already having contract offers apparently passed back and forth. They are already having extension discussions, so that would also make sense. I just think San Francisco wants to do things that, like, again, they haven't ordered two things, right? They have the priorities, right? It's in previous years, it was, let's handle the acquisitions, free agency, the draft, the re-signings. Then we'll handle extensions later. I think that Kittle would get that same kind of treatment of, like, look, you're going to be here no matter what. We'll extend you when we're all back together in, the summertime for OTAs and training camp. For Juwan Jennings, they extended him last year relatively quickly. I do think it would be important to re-extend him, if you will, give him a new contract. I think San Francisco realizes that it'll be interesting to see who they draft this year, because maybe there's some indications as to them letting Juwan Jennings walk. I will say this, he'll certainly get a raise after what he did last year. And maybe you find yourself kind of in a bind as to, okay, I could see Juwan getting extended during the year, similarly to Lenore last year, because they want to know what's going on with Brandon Aiyuk. How healthy is he? They also want to figure out how good Pearsall may or may not be in 2025. I think it's a good time to wait and see what he can do this year. And see where you're at in regards to your entire room. So I want to extend him. I think he should get extended, but I don't think it'll happen today. As my dog barks at the front door, which I'm not going to answer that. Let's see what we have here. Let's move on in my notes. I want to let you know, if you want to go watch your Niners play this year, or you want to go to an MLB game or an NBA game, go to SeatGeek.com and use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. We have some more updates here. Deebo Samuel was discussed on the Scoop City podcast with Rossini as well. And she was pretty blunt that the Niners are probably not going to trade Deebo Samuel, that they are probably going to get absolutely nothing for him on the trade market. Although she did say the team is trying to trade him, they want to trade him, but all indications she has received is that they cannot trade him, that nobody's going to give them what they want, which again, San Francisco often overvalues their players, which let's say San Francisco wants a third or fourth round draft pick. No team's giving them that. But we did get some awkward insight, or I guess some awkward, not confrontations, but some awkward responses to questions asked by the media to Adam Peters, the GM of the Washington Commanders, when he was asked about what about Deebo Samuel? Do you want to get Deebo Samuel? He was like, no comment. I don't talk about players from different teams, and then was like awkwardly ushered away by the PR staff. So, one potential suitor was like, I'm not playing the game. I'm not going to put my shoe in my mouth, and we're going to move on. The other one, though, which was a more interesting answer and very much out of the John Lynch playbook of how to answer when talking to the media, was Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans. He said, when asked, what about Deebo Samuel? Do you want him? Do you not want him? He said, the team is always wanting to acquire good players, and Deebo Samuel is a good player. I think that's fair. I think that's an easy answer to make. I think that, for Deebo, like, the situation sucks if you're San Francisco, right? You're losing a player that you hope can be somewhat, I guess you can say, a better version of himself than what he was last year. You're hoping there's more in his tank. You were wishing to maybe play out the last year of his contract, albeit his play of recent years hasn't really indicated that's going to happen. But then when he's done things, the way his contract was smartly signed and set up by his agent, Tory Dandy, and himself, doesn't really give San Francisco an out without being snake bitten. So, they did a great job with the contract structure, but it's very much seems like, although there were reports earlier last week and even this week that, Deebo, may or may not get traded, that teams are kind of eyeing him and they're kind of poking around like Aiyuk, that the offers they're getting are probably not going to be enough to make San Francisco say yes, albeit I stick by my point yesterday of like, anything you get for Deebo is better than nothing. So do it now, get that 6th round pick and call it a day and say, cool, whatever. Have a team ask for a 5th round pick and say whatever. Like, this team needs to get anything. And if that March 22nd roster bonus means anything to them in regards to what they want to save, a 6th round pick and saving $16 million is a big thing for them, then get it done, whatever it takes. So I know the odds don't look great. However, I would not be shocked to hear that the Texans, who are going to lose Stephon Diggs this offseason, who likely probably aren't going to have Tank Dell all of next year, if they do super late, that they want to give CJ Stroud a underneath receiver. You have Nico Collins. He's the big physical guy, go deep downfield, but they don't have the underneath guy. I really wouldn't be shocked to hear the Texans are one of those teams. I don't know what they'd offer. Again, late round draft pick compensation makes the most sense, but knowing DeMeco, knowing how they do things in Houston, they spent pretty big on receivers. Like, they extended Collins, they traded for Stephon Diggs. Like, it's 1 year of Deebo, and that's the thing. And that's why it makes trading Deebo so tricky, because any team that acquires him, he's likely going to want an extension. And I don't know a single team out there that wants to sign Deebo Samuel to a contract extension. If anything, they want Deebo Samuel to play out the final year of his contract, see what he's got left, then decide whether he's worth re-signing or letting go. So there's so many wrinkles to this conversation and Deebo's situation that it makes it feel like that the Niners aren't going to be able to trade him. Laura Matthews asks here, Was it smart for the Niners to restructure Deebo last year? I don't remember um the exact like numbers or the financial the ramifications of it, restructuring him. Um the reason why the Niners redid Trent's contract, CMC's contract, Debo's contract, and others, Javon Hargrave's contract, was simply just to have carryover cap space for this year, knowing they were going to lose certain players and have to re-sign certain players like Brock, Kittle, and Fred Warner. So I wouldn't have done that. I think if it meant having an extra $8 million to not spend, the cap just went up. So about $7 million. So probably was unnecessary. However, um, maybe there was an off chance they were thinking, look, let's try to free up the most cap space now, carried over in the next year. But I have a hard time believing it actually helped that much. So probably not. Um, and only hurt themselves with the dead cap stuff this year. So it seems like he's not getting moved. It seems like it'll all be a free agent releasing probably around March 20th, March 18th. San Francisco can be a little like not vendetta, but can hold some grudges, if you will. Um, and I would not be shocked to know because the report came out last week about them like regretting Deebo's contract and Aiyuk's contract and Bosa's contract, albeit the latter two are kind of stupid to regret. I wouldn't be shocked to see them hold on to Deebo to the very last moment to be like, yeah, screw you, man. Not in a mean way, but it's like, fine, you want out? We're not going to give you that 20-day, 10-day free agency period. And they're going to ride this thing out to the very last moment to get a deal done. However, if they get a trade done, just do it now. Get it over with. The faster Deebo's gone, the faster everybody moves on. You can go towards free agency and the draft. But I also wouldn't be shocked to hear San Francisco say March 21st, released at midnight, and you're like, okay. I see how the game is played. Moving along to the NFL draft for 1 second, because yesterday I gave you some prospects to look out for at the combine. And in all of my conversations with the draft on Twitter, on social media, with Larry Krueger and others throughout the last month or so, I have been like, the Niners need to get Mike Green at 11. He's the number 3 edge rusher in this class. He likely fits San Francisco better than Pierce does from Tennessee. Like I'm all on Mike Green's case. 17 sacks last year, 67 total pressures, a 21% pass rush win rate. And I was like, I'm all in. Let's get this thing done. But unfortunately, when the combine comes around, you start to have player interviews. You start to have, some background checks being done, and things can unfortunately reveal themselves to fans and teams alike. And some of those things can be really good. Other times it can leave the worst taste in your mouth and can be ultimate red flags for certain players. San Francisco, for example, Reuben Foster, right? Excellent player at Bama, but had an attitude problem. They go to the combine. He fights one of the doctors there. San Francisco still drafts him, and then history is history. A lot of assault charges, and things go crazy. Um, now Mike Green, who is one of the most, and I want to be very clear here, he's a special prospect. Unfortunately, him being a special prospect means absolutely nothing when you are allegedly a piece of garbage. And I know in the NFL, you have plenty of guys out there that do bad things and get jobs. Deshaun Watson being one of those. Justin Tucker, if those are all true allegations, oh my God, yikes. But Mike Green, according to some background checks that have been done at the combine thus far, has had a sexual assault charge while at Virginia Tech, also had a similar charge while in high school. And I don't know about you, when I hear that, I say, oh my God. There are some people that can be like, whatever. There are some teams that can say, okay, not a big deal. the Chiefs, I'm sure, will still say, we love Mike Green. The Dallas Cowboys, the Raiders, there are just some teams that will wash things or kind of put things under just the pillow and say whatever. It doesn't matter to us too much. But the question needs to be asked: can you change? Can you change? And you would like to give someone a second chance, and I believe in second chances. I think we're all human beings. We make mistakes, and people need to have time to grow. Who I was at 22 is not who I am at 28. I think everybody would agree with that. Even in your 40s and 50s and 60s, albeit it's harder to change then, you can still make changes to your life. However, I'm talking about small changes. Mike Green, if what is said on the background checks are true, it is a complete get off my draft board kind of mistake. And again, I hope Mike Green can change. I hope that for him, this was a really bad mistake. And I'm hoping that allegedly it's not true. That said, it didn't happen once, it happened twice. And when it happens twice, we're in a similar age, the odds you change as a person doesn't happen very often. And so I am personally completely wiping away Mike Green off my draft board. I think teams will as well. I think while the athletic traits are there for a first round pick, we're talking top 10 guy automatically. If the allegations are true, then we're talking about San Francisco, and I think would have liked to have drafted Mike Green, completely steering away from him at 11. And we're talking about just, nope, not a chance. San Francisco, when John Lynch got here and Kyle Shanahan got here, made it a point to get rid of any character concerns, any of them. And when those arose with players they signed or drafted or traded for, they were gone off the team either the following year or during the season, right? And so I firmly believe if these are true, Mike Green will never be a San Francisco 49er during this draft period. I think a lot of teams from pick 1 to 20, I would not be surprised to see Mike Green fall out of the first round entirely if what the background checks says are true. If they're not true, then awesome. I'm happy it didn't happen. That's even better. But when you hear those things, red flags certainly rise up. You get concerned. Character concerns are obviously evident there with him. But again, I'm hoping they're not true. But if they are, steer away completely. And I think this may tank his draft stock. But again, you talk about Philadelphia, Dallas, the Chiefs, someone will draft Mike Green. And for his sake, I'm hoping it's not true because he's a young guy. And I think people deserve second chances, albeit wouldn't be his first strike. Also wouldn't be a second one. So just one of those things to keep in mind during the draft process. I also think it gives San Francisco more credence to trade back in the draft for a team that may be willing to risk drafting Mike Green. It also makes me open to say, look, at 11, whether it's Will Campbell or Armand Membo from Missouri or Walter Nolan, I am all in on those guys. And Mike Green falls all the way down my board and is no longer an option for me at pick number 11. Let's see here. Lori Matthews says, people kill the Niners for not taking chance on bad character guys, but are the first to complain when something bad happens. I mean, you're right. Like recently, the San Francisco 49ers, albeit were not going to be able to re-sign Charles Omenihu, but he got in trouble the night or the week before the NFC Championship game against the Philadelphia Eagles for, I believe, assault charges. I think so. And that immediately is like, okay, bad taste in the mouth, character concerns, goodbye. The San Francisco 49ers are going to do the same thing this offseason. And again, if those things are true, Mike Green's not going to be a Niner this year. Lori Matthew, Papa J asks, do I cover basketball? No, no. I did work for the Golden State Warriors at 95.7 The Game as their I guess, lead producer, if you will, the Warriors network coordinator. I ran every single Warriors basketball game from the radio station, talked to Tim Roy, all the, Tom Tolbert, R.C. Davis, those guys, was vital in getting Warriors basketball on the radio waves for 957, but no. Funny enough, I don't like the sport of basketball. So I'm a Bulls fan, but they've been terrible for a decade, so it doesn't matter too much to me. 49ers 2025 asks, what up, Sterling? Where the heck is John Lynch? Did he not attend the combine? The combine's the entire week. I'm assuming John Lynch will talk tomorrow. I know some GM and some coaches talk today when guys start arriving. Like, no workouts are happening currently. It's player interviews. People are arriving there. Like, all the players aren't even there just yet. So, I think he'll talk tomorrow because workouts begin on Thursday and run through Sunday. Perfect. Here. Niner Media says that Lynch talks tomorrow at 11 a.m. So he'll talk tomorrow. I'm sure he's already there. He's probably in those interviews with players. Maybe he's talking to Mike Green saying, yikes, for all we know. But yes, John Lynch is there. We'll talk tomorrow. Tommy Huxley, $2 with a super chat. Thank you so much, Tommy. I appreciate you always in there on the YouTube chat. I see you in there every single show. I really appreciate you. He says, Lombardi is a trash quarterback coach. Kind of already talked about that. Again, I don't know the exact history with him, but I do know he was in Vegas, I believe, with Jimmy Garoppolo in 2023, if not 2023. And things weren't great. And again, this could be, you got to give some guys credit too. Like, coaches can also grow. Like, they make mistakes, they learn what works. He's a relatively young guy. So I'm not going to say he stinks, but the history that he has as a quarterback coach, he will need to prove to be worth the title of quarterback coach before I say he's good or bad. But his recent production as a quarterback coach with the Raiders, not very good. But thank you again for the super chat, Tommy. What else do we have here? He was the OC for the Raiders. Sorry, excuse me. Lombardi was the Raiders OC. Even worse. No, I'm just kidding. But thank you. Let's see. He was in New England with Tom Brady in 2019 as their assistant quarterback coach. Maybe that's where I learned that from. When he got hired last year, which doesn't mean much because the Belichick coaching tree is absolutely terrible. like if there is, like, we make so much about how, McVay's coaching tree, Shanahan's coaching tree are great and they're awesome. Belichick's coaching tree is utterly atrocious. We're talking like one of the worst coaching trees of all time. McDaniel, Patricia, like Rob Mayo for 1 year, albeit there's some nuance and context behind that. Like, almost every single coach out of the Belichick coaching tree has utterly failed after they leave. So hopefully it changes. But time will tell. Let's see. I'm not going to respond to this comment, but it is pretty funny, and I'll just leave it there on the YouTube screen. Moving along here, I want to let you guys know that if you want to perform like the GOAT Jerry Rice, the greatest of all time, then you got to get yourself a can of GOAT Fuel, whether you're an athlete or a normal person like myself that has people coming to my door, knocking on it during my live shows, and you want to get the best out of your performance. Had the dog not barked, you wouldn't even have known somebody was there. So that said, click that link down below and get yourself a can of GOAT Fuel to feel like and perform like the greatest of all time, and get 10% off using my link in the description. Okay, moving along to our final comments, final topic of today's show. We had some interesting at the combine. Players get cut. This is where every GM, I want Jacob Cowing fuel. I mean, don't we all? But at the combine, so many GMs, so many assistants are there. you see players get cut. You see random trade conversations happen. This is where Matthew Stafford to the Rams and the Lions happened. It was during this time. It was like, oh my God, like, what's going on? When GMs get drunk and Jim Irsay gets on some illegal substances, things can happen out there in Indianapolis. So we have gotten some news from the Washington Commanders that they are going to allow defensive tackle Jonathan Allen to seek a trade, to find a trade partner, to find a trade destination for him. According to Ian Rappaport, they've already had a couple of trade discussions with teams. And so my question is, could the San Francisco 49ers be one of those teams that have called the Washington Commanders in regards to trading for Jonathan Allen? We know that there are many connections with Washington, Adam Peters being one of the main ones, now Washington's GM as of last year. We know last year the Commanders drafted Johnny Newton. So, there's reason to move off of Jonathan Allen. He's 30 years old, a little older, higher paid player. They want to get younger. They want to get cheaper. I do wonder if San Francisco, who has a need at defensive tackle, Hargrave is now gone. It's Malik Collins. It's Jordan Elliott. It's Evan Anderson, and really nobody else. And so there is a need for San Francisco to get a defensive tackle, albeit maybe you want to go younger in the draft. Allen is a really good player. He wants a new contract, but I do wonder if San Francisco is one of those teams that just inquired as to, hey, what do you want for Jonathan Allen? The last 3 or 4 seasons, amongst defensive tackles, he has 199 tackles. That's 10th among DTs. He has 121 solo tackles. That's 5th among defensive tackles. He has 25 sacks. That's inside the top 10. He has 179 pressures. That is 7th amongst defensive tackles, and 39 tackles for losses. That also ranks 7. When you talk about aging players, oftentimes when they get older, you see a dip in production. Last year for the Commanders, he had 21 tackles, 26 pressures, 3 sacks, a 10.4% pass rush win rate, 18 run stops, albeit a 42.2 run defense grade. So certainly are some concerns with Jonathan Allen, but if San Francisco says, hey, we'll give you a 4th round pick, we'll give you a 3rd round pick, we'll give him a new contract, we'll draft Walter Nolan, we'll get Jonathan Allen, maybe there's some ways that can work. Financially, Allen is in the last year of his deal. He has 0 guaranteed money remaining on his contract. So similar to Myles Garrett and Max Crosby and Marlon Humphrey, all guys who have been somewhat connected to or linked to or rumored to be traded to San Francisco this offseason. San Francisco would have to give him a new contract and extend him as well. So there is ways to make that work. There is ways to money-wise fit him into the cap space you currently have, which is $50 million at the moment. And for the Commanders, he's 30 years old. He's an aging player, and they can save $10 million in trading him, whether it's pre-draft or post-draft. So it doesn't matter when they move him. They can save $10 million no matter what. Could also mean he's more likely to get cut, but let's say San Francisco wants to be aggressive, sees maybe that there is a move they can make that's kind of under the radar. Like, Allen's going to be cheaper than Crosby, Garrett, and Humphrey combined. So I can see them saying we need to have a defensive tackle. We like Jonathan Allen. We'll give him a 3-year deal, give him guaranteed money, albeit San Francisco may want to be younger and go younger via the draft. I do think maybe there is a way we could see a Deebo Samuel, Jonathan Allen swap, with picks involved, albeit player for player trades are so unlikely. And I think Allen likely gets cut, but does trading for Jonathan Allen make some sense for San Francisco? They have a need at the position. Financially, they can make it work. In regards to draft pick compensation, well, they got 10 picks this year to make a trade happen. Albeit the big drawback to this is I really, really, really doubt San Francisco wants to commit multiple years to a 30-year-old player. On top of that, also big money to a 30-year-old defensive tackle, knowing they can probably find a comparable player with the 11th overall pick. And this is one of the deepest interior defensive line draft classes we have maybe ever seen. So, yes, Allen's a really good player, albeit we have seen some dip in production in recent years. To give him maybe some credit, the Commanders' defense was really bad last year. Like, I know they were a great story, and Jaden Daniels was phenomenal, and Terry McLaurin and Diami Brown, and again, they were not supposed to be as good as they were last year. That defense was not good, like really bad, and I think maybe Allen was somewhat of a victim of that. They have Newton, they have Deron Payne. They don't really have a need for him anymore. And as Fish and Chips points out, San Francisco has shown in previous years that if there is a veteran defensive tackle that they like on the open market or the trade market, they don't mind being aggressive at them. Now, sometimes it backfires, like Javon Hargrave, who, although didn't play great, was a Pro Bowler in 2023, and the injury last year cost him a pretty good start to the year. That said, San Francisco really is in a position where they can be aggressive. I know they have to extend Purdy and whatnot, and they're going to move Deebo, and they have some bigger things, bigger fish to fry, if you will. Jonathan Allen could be an under the radar trade target to get that I don't think many teams are going to be like vying for. But if you're the Niners and maybe you say, hey, you want Deebo, we want Allen, let's make this thing work. Again, rather far-fetched, but we are in the far-fetched time of the NFL offseason where everything is being thrown at the wall. It's the combine where everything's being discussed. I mean, my goodness, who saw Brian Greasy leaving the team, which he did? Who saw a couple years ago Stafford going to the Rams? I remember, and I don't know why I didn't listen to him. I had David Burkett on from the Detroit Press, I believe, and he said, I know the Niners want Matthew Stafford, but watch out for the Rams. I can see Jared Goff being traded. He knew. So crazier things have happened. I know San Francisco wants to be, in the trenches, revitalized, and they want to fix their defensive line. Allen could go a long way into doing that, which we don't really have too much time because Lord Matthews asks here, when does free agency start? The new league year begins on March 12th, I believe. And so we have roughly 2 weeks, 3-ish weeks to see if San Francisco can find a trade for Jonathan Allen. And then March 22nd is when Deebo Samuel's roster bonuses due. So we have about a month or so to see if a deal can get done. But I do think that even if it means entertaining the idea, the San Francisco 49ers could be one of the few teams trying to trade for Jonathan Allen this offseason. He doesn't give you much from a run defender standpoint, but really good pass rusher. I think next to Bosa could go a long way. He's a veteran. He's pretty savvy. And I think getting him in a winning environment, I know Washington was good last year, but getting him in San Francisco, get him refreshed, those things matter to players. Sometimes you wear out your welcome. He clearly wants to leave. And if he wants to leave, sometimes players like that have things to prove. So maybe, just maybe, there is a way. Been a good player for a very, very long time on really bad teams. And we've seen previous years, San Francisco strike trades with the Commanders, albeit different regimes, Trent Williams and also Chase Young a couple years ago. So there's a history there. There's a need. The finances work for both teams, and both teams have the draft pick compensation to make a deal work regarding either Deebo Samuel or Jonathan Allen. To give you some predictions, if you will, to end today's show, I don't think Aiyuk gets traded. Purdy will probably get $57 million per year. uh, close to that Jared Goff contract. I think Deebo gets released. I don't think a team is paying up for him, and I don't think Jonathan Allen goes to San Francisco, but I would not be shocked to hear the San Francisco 49ers snooping around the trade market this offseason, knowing that they want to be competitive. They want to be competitive. Fish and Chips asks here, am I going to get credentialed for training camp this year? I certainly hope so. Last year for me was a busy May and in June and July. I got married late in May. I was at OTAs. I try to get back for training camp. I try to work things out with my job to get out there and work it. I just couldn't. But now that I'm covering the Niners for my other job, maybe there's a way. I do want to get back out there. Here's a little secret here. My wife doesn't have her driver's license yet, so I have to drive her back and forth to work every single day. If she can get her license, then I can go back up north and go to training camp every single day, and hopefully that can work itself out. But I really hope so. I know I can. Like I can just ask and get in there whenever I want to, but it's all about the means of getting up there. I don't live in NorCal anymore. I live in Southern California now, but my family's still there, so I have a place to stay. But just about getting things done. Like with my job, 957, I'll probably still be hosting post games. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that's still the case. But I at least cover the team now, writing wise, for theheavy.com. So there's many ways for myself to get credentialed again. It's awesome too. Like I know fans go, maybe you guys have gone to training camp and whatnot, but it is awesome. The insight we get, you can watch a lot of it on TV or YouTube with the press conferences they do. And so like a lot of it's not great, but like being there, seeing the players live when you really can't talk about it, getting the insight when no one else is there. So hope I can go back. Papa J asks here, no license. Is my wife 18? Yes, she is 18. There's a lot of reasons as to why she didn't get her license with the move up here or gets down here to SoCal. We had a lot more going on. She got a new job. I got a new job. There was some transitional things going on, but my plan is to lock her inside that car until she gets her license this summer to hopefully get my butt back to NorCal to watch training camp this year. Laura Matthews says, sign her up for classes. That's the thing is like my brother took Safest Way. He got his classes. My mom taught me. My dad taught me in the car, just driving in the neighborhood, getting comfortable. She's rather comfortable. She tried to get her license a couple years ago during COVID, and things didn't go as she had planned. But unfortunately, she's a very nervous person. So getting in a motorized vehicle as a driver really scares her. I'm hoping that we can tame that I guess you can say the scared mindset she has at times and get rid of that fear this summer. But unfortunately for her, we moved to Asperia, California last summer in May. And within 6 months, we ran into a bag of wood on the road. So I was like, oh, I got a car accident really fast. And she was like, oh my God, I'm so scared. But now she has since calmed down. So hopefully we'll be okay. And hopefully I can get her that license. And funny enough, it's always weird because I had my license since I was 18. I've drove when I was a senior in high school and whatnot. I have my dad's old Ford Mercury, new fresh paint job. I was like, this is great. I have freedom. And, obviously me and her live two different lives, but I've always had my license, like always. And so initially when we first started dating, we were in college, so it wasn't a problem. But now it's like, I don't want to drive you everywhere. I want to stay home. I work from home. I don't want to get up at 6 a.m., 7:30 in the morning if I don't have to. And if I do, I want to be able to eat breakfast and shower at a decent hour. And, my day started 7:30. I don't get back home till 9 a.m., which isn't that far and isn't that long, but it's like, I don't want to get up. So selfishly, it's like, please, fingers crossed, get your license. But yes. Take the bumper car exam. Honestly, I would tell her take the bus, but because she's very pro public transportation. But they don't have any taxis up here in this area, and the bus stop is a very far walk away. Um, and she works 2 towns over. But the bumper car route may be a good idea. I can take her to the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, take her to Scandia down here, and maybe go bumper car driving and say, "Look, you hit wherever you want. Just stay on the track." Maybe I'll take her to Disneyland and we'll go on Autopia and say, "Look, here's your driver's test. There's a track. You can't go off it. Just be safe. Be safe." Yes, she is using the Bennett cabs. She is using the Bennett cabs this year. Hopefully it changes in the next few months or so. But to your point, fish and chips, yes, I want to be at training camp. I love being there. It is one of the most insightful places for me, talking to people, talking to other reporters, seeing things firsthand. Because, and look, I'll tell you this, a lot of people that cover the team do a great job, that have no agendas, that just tell you how it is. There are some other people that will go unnamed that have agendas on both sides, and you know who they are, and it's frustrating. And sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. And for myself, who went to school to get a journalism degree, that has a BA, that interned for a couple years and like paid my dues to get where I'm at currently, which really isn't anywhere worth mentioning, highly of. That said, a lot of people are jaded and will tell you things because that's how they see them. When I'll tell you this, you have the wrong, like if you're standing in the wrong spot or a different spot than say somebody in the rafters, somebody 13, 20 yards down the field, you will get a very different experience. You'll see things differently, and the outcome of the plays you are telling to other people that believe you're reporting is vastly different than those of the people next to you. So I think it's really important to go there, be honest, be truthful, and maybe not have like, I was there during the Trey Lance, Sam Darnold stuff. I was there during the Jimmy G, Trey Lance stuff. Like, witnessing it in person every single day is very different than reading it from those that witness it in person every single day. If you can go, buy tickets, go see them. If you can't go, hopefully you can tune in here and I can give you unbiased reporting from training camp every single day, because after being there, it opened my eyes to exactly what goes on behind the scenes with some reporters out there that certainly have a lane they like to drive down more often than not. But that said, a lot happened today. Mike Green's draft stock may be in the toilet. Deebo Samuel may or may not get traded. Seems like it's not going to happen. Brock Purdy, that contract, that number is getting closer to $57 million per year, according to Diana Rossini. And we have some teams poking around Brandon Aiyuk's trade market. Will or will he not get traded? Tell me down below in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the show. You can follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X or the Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. You can use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49ERS. ACCESS at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. And also click that link down below and get yourself a 6 or 12 pack of goat fuel by getting 10% off clicking that link down below. My name is Sterling Bennett. Thank you, every single person. Fish and Chips, Kyle Chipto, Papa J, Lori Matthews, so many others. Tommy Huxley also in here for liking, sharing, subscribing. Penalty P, Niner Media. You guys are all great. Really appreciate your time. Again, until next time, probably tomorrow, my name is Sterling Bennett. And as always, stay faithful.